So apparently Grand Blanc schools will implement a no cell phone policy for the upcoming school year. While I can appreciate the sentiment behind it, being someone who personally was a part of the last generation to go to school without a cell phone until roughly, I'd say, about 10th grade, 9th grade, in that area, I can therefore appreciate, the message behind why they would want to do this. I, at the same time, understand that times have changed, unfortunately, for the worse. So while back in the day this would have been great, and this was implemented back in my day too, it just wouldn't work in 2022 or 2023 to be exact for this particular school year. And this won't work for various reasons, and I'll list off 3. And like I said before, although I did grow up in the era of no cell phones in school, because, well, they really weren't a thing back then until roughly the 9th grade-ish. And therefore I wouldn't mind a no cell phone policy for the future generations as well. But because I am a realist, I am someone of logic and ration and so on and so forth, I just know it won't work. It simply just won't work. Number 1. Teens are teens. Let's face it. We were all teens at one point. We know how this goes. But for a little bit of more elaboration on this, let's face the facts here. They're going to sneak or bring them in blatantly, regardless of what policy or rule is in place. Likewise with uncompromising parents or parents that don't try to reinforce such a rule as this. And or teens that, regardless of their parental involvement, will sneak out their phones regardless. As I said, teens will be teens. They're addicted to their phones and rarely, if ever, let their phone out of their possession for any amount of time. This alone is by itself the be-all, end-all reason, but I have a few others for reinforcement, such as number 2. With all the school violence and shooting, yeah, you knew this was gonna come up. While they should not be allowed to use during class at all, having them packed away on your person, because this school, Grand Blanc, does not even want it on their person, could mean life or death in an emergency. Likewise, video recording for evidence of, say, bullying, or someone who started a fight versus who said it started the fight, etc., etc., would come in handy as well. I am not one who really is an advocate for having phones in schools, but due to the increase in shootings and such, I am able to adapt because I'm a realist. I'm realistic, I'm logical, I'm rational, someone of a sound mind who doesn't have one extremist belief versus the other extremist belief. No, I'm in the middle. And I'm compromisable. Anyway, I understand that times have changed, and this is one of the actual realistic useful uses for a cell phone in school. Being able to make a call in an emergency situation. Being able to use video evidence in a bullying situation or a fight situation or any situation that needs some sort of evidence as to defeat he said, she said, or he said, she said, she said. Number 3. This will cause more issues than anything else. Even in my day with the flip phone, if a teacher tried to take someone's phone away, it became a situation, to put it lightly. Now back then it wasn't so much addiction to the phone that caused a, shall we say, situation, but it was the embarrassment and the ego that goes with having your phone taken away in front of all of your classmates and or friends and boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, you know, and it would cause a situation. Now only worsen that by 100 times over. With that, today's teens, due to how they are so addicted to their phones. Ever try to take an item or a thing that someone is addicted to, obsessed with? For example, drugs from a drug addict kind of thing. It doesn't ever turn out well. If anything, this will escalate issues for teachers and staff, as I am sure there will be plenty of teens that will get physical over keeping their phones. Even if it means fighting, physically throwing fists, choking, whatever, a teacher or staff member in order to keep said staff member or teacher from taking it from them. As if teachers didn't already have it difficult enough, this will make it that much more difficult for said teachers and staff members of the school. Especially since, if say teachers are physical or otherwise, oh, well, they get social outrage and they'll be told, oh, you gotta retire or you're fired, blah blah blah. Since teachers can't discipline, and since staff members can't really enforce and discipline kids anymore either, it's literally way too in favor of the teenager themselves. Likewise, if a teen gets physical, they can get suspended or whatever, but if a teacher does something of that sort, like getting physical, they can get fired. They can have very permanent consequences to their actions, where, you know, most teenagers, they'll get kicked out of school for a while, or at worst expelled, so they have to go to some other school, but it won't be as permanent for them as it will a teacher or a staff member at the school. So that overwhelming one-sidedness in favor of the teenagers only makes it that much more worse and difficult for teachers who aren't already paid enough. You know, they don't need to deal with this extra bullshit and extra stress of now having to manage and enforce this no cell phone policy, which will only make their jobs that much harder for a job they're not being paid well enough for as is, and it ultimately just is not worth it, if you ask me. You're literally making it that much harder for teachers, and that of its own right I cannot go with, unless they're going to exponentially increase that all their teachers' pay. Then it's just not worth it. Pay them extra if you're going to implement that rule. And I'll just leave it at that. Until next time.